aitah for telling my husband I'm done after he ripped up our marriage certificate and threw it in the trash. The sound of tearing paper shouldn't make you feel like your world is ending. But that night it did. It wasn't loud, not really. Just a dry, almost careless rip followed by another and another. I remember standing frozen in the kitchen doorway, watching my husband, slowly tear our marriage certificate into pieces and drop them into the trash. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He didn't even look angry. He just looked hollow. When he turned to me, he said quietly, "There. Now we're even." Even for what? I didn't even know. It all started 3 weeks earlier. We'd been arguing. Not constantly, but enough that silence had started to feel heavier than shouting. Little things turned into weapons, dishes left in the sink, forgotten errands, unspoken resentments. I had caught him lying. Not about something huge, not an affair, not money, but about something small that revealed more than it should have. He told me he was working late, but when I checked his location, he was sitting in a bar near his brother's place. Alone, when I asked why, he said he just needed space. But then came the messages. A few vague ones on his phone, half deleted, half hidden, from someone named Day. He swore it was nothing. He swore I was overreacting. I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But I could feel the shift, the way he stopped reaching for me, the way his eyes glazed over when I talked, the way "I love you" started sounding like a line he was rehearsing. The night he tore up the certificate, we were supposed to talk things out. He came home late again, smelling faintly of whiskey and cold air. I asked, softly at first, "Can we please talk about what's going on?" He stared past me. "There's nothing to talk about. You're distant. You're barely here anymore. If something's wrong, you always want something to be wrong," he snapped. Maybe that's the problem. That one sentence broke something in me. I told him I felt like he didn't want to be married anymore. He laughed, not cruelly, but bitterly. "Maybe I don't," he said. "Maybe marriage was just another trap." And then, before I could say another word, he went to the drawer, pulled out the marriage certificate we'd framed, and ripped it in half. When he threw the pieces into the trash, I just stood there numb. It felt symbolic, too symbolic. Like he wasn't just tearing paper, but rewriting the end of us. "You can't just do that," I whispered. "It's just paper," he said. "You made it mean something it doesn't." And for a long, agonizing second, I believed him. Because if it was just paper, then maybe what we'd built together, all the late-night talks, the promises, the forevers, were just words too. He slept on the couch that night. I didn't sleep at all. At 3:47 a.m., I got up, went to the kitchen, and pulled the torn pieces out of the trash. They still smelled like his cologne. One piece had his signature, half-ripped, half-readable. Another had mine. I sat on the floor and tried to piece them back together like some pathetic puzzle, but the edges didn't line up right. They never do they? Once something's torn, it doesn't fit the same way again. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened, made coffee, checked his phone, asked if I wanted anything from the grocery store. I stared at him, searching for even a flicker of remorse. There was none. "Are we really not going to talk about last night?" I asked. He shrugged. "You're the one who takes everything so seriously. It was just a piece of paper." That's when I realized he wasn't sorry. He didn't regret what he'd done. He just regretted that I saw what he really felt. One didn't say much after that. I packed a small bag and left for a few days, staying with my cousin. When I came back, the apartment was clean. To clean. The picture frames that used to hold our wedding photos were empty. He had taken them down. And taped to the fridge was a note, "If you're done being dramatic, we can talk." I stared at it for a long time. Then I realized I was done. Just not in the way he meant. When I told him I was leaving, he didn't fight. Didn't beg. Didn't ask why. He just nodded quietly. "So this is it?" he asked. "You made sure of that," I said. He smirked, almost sadly. "Guess we're even again, even." The word still echoes in my head sometimes. Even for what? Even for loving someone who didn't know how to love back. I found the torn certificate again when I was packing. I could have thrown it away, but I didn't. I folded the pieces gently and tucked them inside an envelope. Not because I wanted to keep them, but because I needed the reminder that love, no matter how beautiful it starts, can be ripped apart by the hands that once held it tightest. TLDR. My husband ripped up our marriage certificate during an argument, threw it in the trash, and acted like it meant nothing. I told him I was done and walked away. He didn't stop me. Now I keep the torn pieces as a reminder that even isn't the same thing as equal. Part 2. The meaning of even I thought walking away would give me peace. It didn't. At first, it was quiet. Too quiet. No late-night arguments, no footsteps pacing the hall, no coffee brewing at dawn. Just silence. The kind that hunts, that presses against your ribs and reminds you what's missing. For weeks, I stayed with my cousin. I told her bits and pieces. Not the whole story, just enough to justify my sudden disappearance. She called him a jerk, said I was better off, and I nodded like I agreed. But late at night, I'd lie awake and replay that moment, the sound of paper ripping, the flatness in his voice when he said, "Now we're even." Even for what? The question dug under my skin like glass. 3 weeks later, he texted me. Him, "You left your passport here. Want me to mail it?" Me, "No, he'll pick it up." He replied almost instantly. Him, "He'll leave it on the table. Don't worry, I won't be home." But when I walked into the apartment, he was there, sitting on the couch, lights dim. Our wedding photo, the one I thought had taken down, was lying face up on the coffee table, cracked glass over our smiling faces. "You said you wouldn't be here," I said, heart pounding. "I lie," he said, "just like you did." My stomach twisted. "What are you talking about?" He leaned back, eyes dark, tired. "You said you married me because you loved me. But you married me because you were scared to be alone." I stood there, frozen. "That's not true," I whispered. "Isn't it?" He said. "You think I didn't notice? You were halfway out the door before we even signed the papers. You wanted security, not me." The words stung because some part of them had truth in them. But not the kind he thought. Yes, I wanted stability, but I wanted it with him. And now, standing there, I realized how far we'd drifted from that. "You think that's why I left?" I asked quietly. "Because I didn't love you enough?" He gave a bitter laugh. "No. You left because I finally gave you an excuse to." He picked up one of the torn pieces of the marriage certificate. I hadn't noticed until then that had kept them too. Had flattened them out, taped them together. The tape lines cut across our signatures like scars. "You shouldn't have taken that from the trash," I said. "Neither should you," he replied. Then he added softly, "We both keep trying to fix what's already destroyed." He stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured himself a drink. His hand shook slightly. "You know what hurts most?" he said, voice low. "That you'll tell everyone I lost control, that I ruined it. But you won't tell them what you did." "What did I do?" I asked. He stared at me. Long enough that I had to look away. "You stopped loving me months ago," he said, "and you didn't have the decency to say it." He took a sip, then said, "So when I ripped up that paper, it wasn't because I hated you. It was because I wanted you to feel what I felt. I wanted you to see what you'd already done." The silence after that was unbearable. I could hear the ice melting in his glass. I could hear my own heart thudding in my ears. He wasn't wrong. Not completely, but he wasn't right either. Yes, I had grown distant, but it wasn't from lack of love. It was from exhaustion, from carrying a relationship where I always had to be the one fixing, forgiving, forgetting. And maybe that was my mistake. Thinking love could survive in one person's hands. He looked at me one last time and said, "You'll move on fast. You always do." I wanted to deny it, but I didn't. Instead, I said the one thing I'd never told him before. "You're right. I stopped loving you the night you stopped seeing me." For a second, I thought I saw something break in his face. Not anger, not pride, just grief, the kind that comes too late. He didn't answer. He just nodded, slowly. "Then I guess we really are even," he said. I left the apartment with the envelope in my hands, the same one that held the torn certificate. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel relief. Just a strange calm, like the moment before a storm that never comes. The next morning, he was gone. He texted once, a few days later, "I hope you find what you were looking for." I typed back a reply, then deleted it. A month passed. I moved into a new place, small but bright. I hung no photos, kept no souvenirs. But one day, while unpacking, I found something wedged inside one of the boxes. A folded piece of paper, sealed with tape. It was the certificate. Whole, untorn, clean. I unfolded it slowly, expecting the jagged lines of tape. But there were none. It was new, replaced, and written across the bottom in his handwriting were 3 words, "Now you're free." I don't know if he sent it before he left, or if he came by and slipped it into the box when I wasn't home, but somehow I think I understood. Even didn't mean revenge. It meant release. We'd both done damage. different kinds but real. And ripping the certificate was his way of saying what he couldn't with words, that our love, however flawed, was over. And maybe that was mercy. Tilder Part 2. After I left my husband for tearing up our marriage certificate, he revealed that he did it because he felt I'd stopped loving him long before. When I moved out, I later found a new, untouched certificate with his handwriting. Now you're free. Part 3. After freedom, it's been for months since I found that envelope. For months since I last saw him. For months since I told myself I was free. Freedom, I've learned, isn't always peaceful. Sometimes it's just silence that echoes too loud. I moved to a smaller town near the coast. The sea isn't blue here, it's a heavy gray that swallows the horizon. I thought the emptiness would help me breathe, but instead it reminds me of him. Not the good him, the real him. The one who could sit beside me for hours without saying a word, yet somehow make me feel seen. And that's the part I hate most, remembering tenderness in someone who hurt me. The new apartment smells of salt and wood. My neighbors are quiet. I teach online now, spend hours in front of a screen pretending I have a plan. Most days I don't speak to anyone. Sometimes I catch myself talking out loud, not to anyone, just to the air. Last week, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a small black notebook. Number note, no explanation. Just one phrase written on the first page in his handwriting. There are things you never asked me. My fingers trembled as I turned the page. Every line after that was blank. I sat there for hours, staring at those empty pages. Was it a message? A confession? A trick? Or was it his way of forcing me to fill in the blanks? To finish our story on my own terms. That night, I dreamed of him. We were back in our old apartment, sitting at the table. The torn certificate was between us again, but this time he wasn't angry. He just looked tired. He said, "You kept asking for truth, but when I gave it to you, you ran." I woke up with my chest tight and my throat burning. The clock read 3:47 a.m. The same time had always come home from his late shifts. Coincidence, I told myself. But I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, I decided to throw the notebook away. But when I opened it one last time, something new had appeared. Faint pencil marks on the second page, like someone had written there recently and then erased it. I tilted it toward the light. I could make out fragments. Truth, not for you. The key, under, and something that looked like the clock. My hands went cold. I still had the old wall clock from our apartment, the one that used to hang above our kitchen door. It was packed away in one of the boxes I hadn't opened yet. I tore through the closet until I found it. The back panel was loose, and wedged inside was a small flash drive. My heart pounded as I plugged it into my laptop. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a single folder appeared titled, "The Last Month." Inside, there were videos, each named after dates. I hesitated, then opened the first one. It was him, sitting in our living room, talking to the camera like he was talking to me. "You're gone now," he said softly, "and maybe you'll never see this. But I need to say it somewhere." He looked pale, thinner. There were shadows under his eyes. "I didn't tear that paper because I hated you. I did it because I couldn't bear how much I still loved you when I knew you didn't love me back." Every day felt like dying quietly beside someone who had already left. He paused, running his hands through his hair. "You used to say I didn't feel enough, but the truth is, I felt too much, and I didn't know what to do with it." The screen flickered. I closed my eyes, but his voice kept going. "If you ever find this, don't come looking for me. Just understand. Even never meant revenge. It meant we both lost something we couldn't fix." There were 12 more videos after that, one for each day leading to the day he disappeared. I watched all of them. Each one was a little darker, quieter, more resigned. By the last video, his voice was barely a whisper. He was sitting by the window, rain streaking down behind him. "You always said you wanted honesty," he said. "So here it is. I'm not angry anymore. I just wish we'd met at a time when we both knew how to love without trying to win." Then he smiled, the faint, broken kind of smile that hurts more than crying. "Now we're really even." The video ended. I sat there, shaking, until the laptop went dark. Part of me wanted to scream, another part just felt numb. All that pain, all that destruction, and beneath it, only love that neither of us knew how to keep alive. For days after, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every sound, a car passing, a phone vibrating, Felt like it might be him again, but he never reached out. He meant what he said. He was gone. A month later, I went to the coast. I took the notebook and the flash drive with me. The sea was rough that day, waves crashing hard against the rocks. I stood there for a long time, watching the horizon blur. Then I threw both into the water, not out of anger, out of mercy, for him and for myself. Because if I kept them, I'd never stop replaying the story, never stop rewriting it in my head, trying to make it end differently. Now, when people ask if I was the one who ended it, I say yes, because I did, even if he helped me find the courage to do it. Sometimes freedom isn't a door you walk through, it's a mirror you finally stop looking into. Tilda Part 3. After leaving her husband, the narrator finds a notebook and a hidden flash drive from him. The videos reveal that he tore the marriage certificate not out of hate but heartbreak, to end a love they were both destroying. She finally lets go, realizing freedom isn't escape, it's acceptance.